Hi, everybody. Welcome back and thank you for your support. From time to time, I do stop my narration and think a little bit, consider what is being said by me and by you in the comment section, because we may be criticizing, we may get worked up and angry, but the day it becomes a hate filled account affecting our mental health and our interactions with society will be the day I walk away from it. I made a post on Reddit because I was in a hurry and Reddit was open on my screen. And as expected, when I mention the King of England, there will be some anger and abuse. I'm honestly so used to it. It is like water off a duck's back. But the one comment, if nothing else, made me think and take stock of myself and my feelings. Why on earth am I so bothered about what King Charles does or what he says? I'm not British. I don't live in England or even in Europe. Why am I so upset about what Harry does or says? As I said, I'm not British, and nor am I American. But having revisited my content, my feelings, and even myself while I was at it, I have no doubt about why I feel the way I do. Like I've said before, I have ADHD and OCD and the rest of the alphabet, and when I become a little fixated on something, that is it. And in this case, it is not that I am fixated on Charles or fixated on Harry or even Meghan. But what I am angry and fixated with is the injustice of it all, the unfairness, the imbalance, and the lack of accountability. Yes, in general talk, I may say something like, I don't like Charles, but like is just a word I use, a type of shorthand, because in reality, I could not give a shit about Charles the man. I don't care whether he is brave or strong or weak or nice or what aftershave he wears or who made his suit. I honestly don't care. What I care about and what makes me so angry is the lack of accountability and the fact that each time the man is in a bit of a spot of trouble, all he does is say, wasn't me, wasn't me, and walks away from it. And he is allowed to do it. He is being allowed to do that because the public has allowed him to do so all his life. But we can and we'll get back to that topic some other time because for now I want to talk about Harry and how much worse the scenario with Harry and the lack of accountability and justice is when it comes to Harry and his wife Meghan. Again, and I know you may be fed up with this subject, but I have to mention it again. One would expect that Harry would have gotten himself into a spot of trouble, openly admitting to drug use in the past and admitting to still be using drugs while living in the United States. Yes, I know weed is legal in California, but Harry also admitted to using cocaine and other hallucinogenic substances. And even though, according to Proposition 47, simple possession for personal use is, and I'm talking about marijuana here, is a misdemeanor in the woke state of California, it is still illegal under the California Health and Safety Code. Thus, although he may not receive a jail time for possession of marijuana for personal use, it is still illegal. And at the very least, he should receive supervised probation. But that is not all. Where is he getting it from? Who is selling weed or marijuana to him? It should be a matter for authorities where or from whom he is getting his supply, because possession with the intent to sell or distribute is indeed still illegal in California and is indeed a felony for which the dealer can get a very long sentence. So, why is this not happening? But even more so, mushrooms containing psilocybin are still illegal to possess, as are other hallucinogens, which are still a Schedule 1 controlled substance under California law. Possession of Schedule 1 substances can result in a range of penalties, from $1,000 fine, mandatory community service, to actually 1 year in jail. Yes, I know. For all you naysayers, I know there are clinical trials going on looking at psilocybin as part of a treatment for mental health, such as bipolar and depression, but it is still illegal to possess. So, where is the police, the state, or the FBI? Are we to assume now that just because Harry is the son of King Charles, a constitutional monarch of Great Britain, he can do what he wants in the United States? Just because he is Prince Harry, the son of a constitutional British monarch, he can freely use, buy, and travel across state lines with illegal substances, and nobody is doing or saying anything. However, if he was your husband or your son and got caught, he would likely have been told to pass go and go straight to jail. Yet Harry admits to doing all of that on television and nothing happens. As a matter of fact, instead of creating an outrage for promoting the use of hallucinogens and weed, he receives an applause. I do not understand the hypocrisy, and I do not understand the one law for you and me and another for them scenario. I always thought we are all equal under the law, but it appears some are more equal than others. Now it appears that one of my previous videos sparked a little controversy, but let me explain. I said that Harry is likely on an O1 or G1 visa, but although I don't know any of this for sure, and I actually said so in the video, there will always be those who have to argue. Well, you see, there are very good reasons why I do not think Harry is on a spousal visa, or at least not anymore. You see, a spousal visa is not permanent. You can only stay for a period of time, although it is valid for, say, 10 years, like a normal tourist visa. You can only stay for up to 6 months. After that, you have to renew that visa. Okay, I must admit, if both the sponsor and the spouse live in the United States, it's not such a big deal to have that visa renewed. The third option is, if you don't want to renew every 6 months or so, that you apply for permanent residence permit. I personally cannot see Harry going to all the trouble of having to leave every 6 months and return, or having to renew the visa every 6 months, etc., etc. And that is why I think it is more likely that he is on an O1 visa, which affords him at least a period of 3 years to stay in the country before he needs to renew. Anyway, the O1 and G1 visa simply has less requirements and less frequent renewals needed. And that's the only reason And as far as any of us know, even those who are arguing with me, he can be on any visa. Nobody knows. Not me, not you. Anyway, the point of this video is, however, not to argue what type of visa Harry has, but whether he lied on his visa application or not. And the fact is that he must have lied on his visa application. He must have lied to authorities, because if he didn't, he would not be sitting pretty in the United States right now. You see, no matter which visa you apply for, the questions about drugs and your health will be asked on any and every form and application in the security and background section. First, from what I understand, lying to authorities is more serious and should have worse repercussions than telling the truth. Let's say 10 years ago an applicant had a drug problem or a mental health issue they were receiving treatment for, but at the time of his application he had been sober for 3 to 5 years, or his psychiatrist says he had worked through his issues and all is well. Well, then, authorities would have looked at the results of his medical exam and likely approved his visa. Maybe with conditions, but would have approved it anyway. But, you see, Harry could not do that, could he? No, he couldn't, because by his own admission, he was still receiving mental health treatment for his anxiety and depression. Remember, he said he found his therapist when William pushed him. So Harry was still in contact with a therapist, maybe until a month or two, three before he left the United Kingdom. And by his own admission, he was still smoking weed. And he was smoking weed since he was a kid, and he is still smoking weed right now as an adult. Remember, he even told us that he would go outside at Tyler Perry's mansion and sit and roll a weed cigarette and smoke it. So what now? Well, had Prince Harry been Joe's soap, his current visa may have been revoked, or he could have been asked to leave the country. But purely because he is Prince Harry, this will likely not happen. Now, I'm asking you, in whose world is this fair or right? Privilege should not count when it comes to the law, but it clearly does. But that's not all, is it? There's so much in the news now about the Silicon Valley Bank collapsing. Better Up and Harry's involvement in the Aspen Institute as a commissioner, and so on and so on. And why am I mentioning all this in the same sentence? Well, the reason is, of course, because most of this is linked one way or the other. For instance, it is said that BetterUp invested heavily in SVB, but we'll talk about that in another video. The point I want to make for this video is that the Aspen Institute is basically an NGO who are subsidized by you, the public, and obviously they also receive donations from other entities and foundations and so on and so on. So far, there had been a lot said and done, and at the same time, nothing said or done. Harry is indeed still partaking in the Aspen Institute and still trying to lecture us on the rights and wrongs of society and what we are supposed to be able to say and what not. And you know what? At the same time, Better Up is allowing him to lecture on God alone knows what, because every time I try and listen, it's a bunch of word salad, which doesn't make sense to me. But in any case, he's still there at Better Up talking about mental health and so on and so on. Now, I'm asking you, do you think this virtually uneducated ex-prince, toy soldier, and liar can be or should be giving any advice on anything, let alone be part of a semi-state funded organization who wishes to censor freedom of speech, censor us, and control our narrative? How can Harry be incorporated into that? They, him and his wife, are exploiting the media almost on a daily basis for money. And he is a British prince telling the American taxpayer what they can and cannot say. No wonder he is calling the American Constitution bonkers. But besides that, as a British prince, he should not be allowed to decide on protocol, behavior, laws, or on what we are supposed to be able to say or not. But as interfering in political matters is not only highly inappropriate for him as a British prince, but to interfere in political matters in another country while using their titles, their British titles, is an absolute outrage and is not appropriate at all and should not be allowed. Taking into consideration that Harry's own wife committed perjury in Britain during her case against the Mail on Sunday, makes Harry's participation as a commissioner at the Aspen Institute and their fight against misinformation even more laughable. So once again, I ask, is this lawful? Is this right or acceptable or fair to the people of America? So, my dear friends, this illustrates the culmination of my irritation, the anger and sadness, not always directed at Harry or even the king as human beings, as people or men, but directed more at those who allow these injustices, who cover up the atrocities, and at those who remain quiet and do not raise their voices against the injustices. Tomorrow, however, my dear friends, we'll steer away from all this heavy and rather negative narrative and we'll have a chat about a variety of subjects, royal and not so royal. Let's go and find that silver lining before we return to balancing or trying to balance the scales of justice. So until we meet again on the next video, please take good care of yourselves. And while I'm at it, please remember to like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate it, and it is free. Thank you very much for being here. Take good care. Bye.